I'm Sarah Chalice. I am one of the outreach coordinators for Connect OC and also co-host with Aaron O'Flaherty for the coalition meetings. And we're also so glad that you're here, ready to dive into some really awesome conversation with us. But I will pass it off to I think Erin first, just because she's my co-host, to do some introductions on who we are and kind of our role on the Connect OC team. So I will pass it to Erin really quick.
Good morning. Sorry I can't be on camera today. My name is Erin O'Flaherty. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Partners for Wellness. And yeah, I love leading these meetings with Sarah. I'm excited for the topic today.
Yeah. Thanks, Erin. I'll pass it to Crystal too.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. I am Crystal Bleischer. I am the Program Director with Partners for Wellness and specifically overseeing our Connect OC project. And happy to have Sarah and Erin splitting the duties of hosting these meetings as we go forward. So thank you all for joining.
Vivi or Joy, you can pick.
Good morning, I'm Vivi. I'm also one of the other outreach coordinators. I'm mostly focused on social media and networking, so all the newsletters and social media stuff like that. I'm the one in charge. So if you need me to promote anything, stuff like that, send it over. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Joy Medina. I'm also an outreach coordinator on the team, and I help Sarah kind of like plan the resource fairs, and I also do I help with social media. I'm kind of like a everything, but yeah, happy to be here, happy to be a part of this conversation and hear what they have to share. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, but again, thank you for being here. If you are just arriving, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, just so we get to know who's in the room, as well. So before we get started, before we do introductions of our panel, I just wanted to kind of let you know a bit about Connect OC. So Connect OC is a program of Partners for Wellness in partnership with the Orange County Healthcare Agency. And our focus is educating and promoting existing mental health resources in Orange County, just with the mission to make services more accessible and widely known to the youth and young adult population that we serve, and also those who support and love them as well. So yeah, I think this is one of the really awesome ways that we get to do that and just raise awareness on a lot of different topics, especially a topic such as this one, on toxic friendships and toxic relationships, which is going to be a really awesome conversation. But we do have our awesome panel. We have Holly and Valentina and Andi with us. So I will go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and then we can go ahead and get started. So yeah, Valentina, go ahead.
I can start. Hi, good morning, everyone. So my name is Valentina. I am one of the education and outreach specialists from Laura's House. Laura's House is a domestic violence agency, so we provide services for anyone experiencing domestic violence throughout Orange County.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Andi, and I am the founder of Bloom Foundation and really excited to be here. Connect OC has been wonderful in these coalition meetings, so excited to share a little bit more today.
Hi, I'm Holly Grupe. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My practice is in San Clemente. It's balanced growth counseling, and I also help co-facilitate the AIM High program at the Noble Path Foundation. So that's what's led me to a lot of these beautiful organizations, and just try and help whoever contacts me find where they're going is my goal. So it's great to know about all the resources.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, ladies. Yeah, so like I said, we're gonna get a little bit into about toxic friendship, kind of what that looks like. If you do have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat, and then we can try to catch them and answer them if we have some extra time. But yeah, you all introduce yourselves, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of space to just explain a little bit about what each organization that you're a part of, what you all do, what your mission is, and things like that. So anyone can start.
I can go ahead and start. So, as I said, my name's Andi, and Bloom Foundation, we really exist to support girls and women who have faced bullying, anxiety, or depression, and we really aim to provide tools and resources to help them heal, connect, and grow into confident leaders. We do this through workshops, our How to Bloom journal, and just community outreach. And this mission is really important to me and special because I experienced some cyberbullying when I was younger, in middle school and in college at UC Irvine. And it was a very challenging time to navigate, but I realized that I really needed kind of more about how to grow from it and how to emotionally process what I was going through. And so that's why I created Bloom Foundation back in 2017 now. And it's been great to just share about the mission, find people who are also really passionate and inspired by it. And I think that together we can create a kinder world. So yeah, that's a little bit about Bloom.
Alrighty. I can go next. So like I mentioned, Laura's House, we are a domestic violence agency. So we provide a range of services to meet the needs of our clients. We have been in service this year. It'll be 31 years that we have been providing services for anyone experiencing domestic violence. So just very briefly on the services that we do provide emergency shelter, transitional housing. We provide legal advocacy. Our legal advocates do assist our clients with the restraining order filing process and navigating the court system. We provide case management. So those are the people that are working with our clients to connect them to services, whatever need that they might have. Most of the time it's finding job security, housing, or even childcare. So whatever need that they might have, our case managers do work with our clients. We also offer therapy not only for adults, but children who have witnessed domestic violence as well. And lastly is my department, the education department. Our focus is prevention education with the youth. So we go all over Orange County. We do start as early as middle school with our teen dating violence presentation because we know that unfortunately those behaviors can start very early on. So we go to middle schools, we go to high schools, colleges, universities, really any community agency that will have us with that presentation for the youth and for young adults. And our hope with that education is that as they start to get into their adulthood and they find themselves in a relationship that is unhealthy, they learn to recognize the signs and feel empowered to leave that relationship as a way to prevent domestic violence. Because what we know about abuse is that over time it does tend to escalate. So that is our hope with that prevention education. With that, we also work with adults, older adults who are also learning about these different topics, understanding domestic violence and different aspects of relationships.
So my practice, balanced growth counseling, I specialize in working with like highly sensitive people and trauma, usually women, and adult women and older teens. And usually like the people pleasers and those very empathic folks do struggle a lot with those toxic relationships. And my goal too is destigmatizing mental health. So doing as much community outreach that I can and getting involved just to be like a point person in the community. I think I get a lot of calls of like, who do you know? And I really just want to know everybody so that I can get people where they're going.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. Yeah, so I guess we'll just dive into defining what a toxic friendship is. So, yeah, anyone can start. How would you define a toxic friendship? Maybe what are some common signs of a toxic friendship? Yeah, what does that look like?
I can start. So in defining a toxic friendship or even a toxic relationship, I would say it's a relationship where you are consistently experiencing emotional or mental harm. And it is behavior that you will see in a pattern. So I always say even people that have healthy relationships sometimes have disagreements or arguments. But usually what happens is that someone will apologize and then that behavior doesn't happen again, right? Normally it doesn't happen because the person has recognized, or maybe you have recognized, right? Like I hurt this person. I don't want to harm my relationship, so it's not going to happen again. But with toxic friendships and relationships, it is behavior that we are going to see consistently, and it is going to impact your emotional, mental well-being in a negative way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's, yeah, a great way to define it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think like you can also think about what a healthy relationship is and then kind of think of the exact opposite would be a toxic one. Healthy ones uplift you. They're really dedicated to being supportive. They give something and you give back, and it's that kind of balance. Whereas I think toxic relationships, there's really an unhealthy imbalance, whether that's you're giving empathy, support, and you're not getting anything back. And yes, the pattern is huge. Like it's not a one-time incident where it just happens, but it's ongoing, which also makes it kind of even worse.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. And yeah. Go ahead, Holly. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna add into like what does that feel like is like if you're leaving when you are saying goodbye to that person, like you feel really maybe bad about yourself, or you're doing things and you're thinking to yourself like that's not who I want to be. And noticing too if like this, I think with friendships, like if somebody's putting you down, like just those little jabs that maybe we can brush off, but like that patterning I think is really important, like was already mentioned. But yeah, if that just consistent disrespect, but sometimes it's like hard to describe, but it's just like this like yucky, I feel yucky when I leave that situation and I don't like that. It's just like a good indicator maybe this isn't a healthy relationship.
Yeah, I know. I think one thing I was like reflecting on was how do you feel when you leave, like the interaction with somebody? And it's like, do you feel uplifted? Do you feel encouraged, supported, or do you feel like worse about yourself? You're like questioning yourself and stuff like that. So I think that's like one super, like it can be sneaky, but it's like a really good sign of what a toxic friendship can be. Yeah. And so for me personally, my best friend was my bully, which was so crazy of like holding both of those things at the same time. So yeah, Andy, I want to just touch on like your expertise of what does it look like for maybe manipulation and bullying to look like in a friendship? And maybe how they differentiate with one another.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened. That's
Yeah.
hard. I think especially when it is someone close to you who you kind of want to trust. And then
Yeah.
that's where manipulation, that term is, yeah, it's a good way to describe it. And manipulation is I would say, like a behavior, sorry. It's like, what is the word? Behavior of bullying. So there's many different behaviors that are bullying behaviors, and they can, I think, go into different buckets. And I would say one is relational, physical, verbal, and then mental. And I think manipulation would go in that mental part. But it often looks like subtle control. It can be guilt tripping, gaslighting, twisting reality, emotional pressure to get what that person wants. And I think it's more subtle. It's more harder to recognize, whereas bullying, you can really easily be like, sometimes you could say this is a clear aspect of bullying, whereas manipulation and the mental bullying can really grow over time. And yeah, but it still has a very big impact. But yeah, I think that would be kind of the difference. It's a little more covert, a little more like mind games and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I definitely can say that like I didn't realize that she was like
Yeah,
my bully until after we weren't friends anymore, which that was just so
right.
crazy. And just
Yeah,
wondering why, yeah, I
yeah.
felt the way I did around her. And yeah, I think
Yeah, it's so common too. I think it can like be disguised really easily as
Mhm.
friendship. And you're like, wait,
Yeah.
this isn't friendship. And when you're young, it's really easy to miss the signs, or, really easy to just we're designed to want friendship,
Yeah.
but we don't know sometimes whether or not it's a healthy one or a toxic
Mhm.
one. So yeah, definitely not alone in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's yeah, really comforting. As
Yeah.
that as that sounds, it's so common. So it's kind of comforting. And it's like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Even though I feel like I am struggling with it, like alone, it's really isolating, especially like, yeah, your like best friend.
Yeah.
You're just like, yeah, she's my bully and it's weird. But
Mhm.
so yeah, I just like a follow-up question for all three of you. So we talked a little bit about like self-esteem, but how does like toxic friendship like impact our self-esteem, even our growth? How do you think, yeah, that kind of affects us?
I think it can impact us both in a positive or negative way. So in healthy relationships, what we're normally going to see are two people, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, who consistently experience trust, respect, and safety, right? So supporting our loved one, being there for them, having healthy boundaries with this person, right? This is a person that I can go to when I'm need advice or when I'm having a really difficult time. This is a person that is going to uplift me. They're going to, make me feel better. Maybe sometimes you just need someone to remind you of all the great qualities that you have. So it can impact your self-esteem in a positive way. And that, of course, is really important because that is going to impact the way that you make decisions and the way that you navigate life, right? If you have a healthy view of yourself, then you are more likely to navigate life's challenges very differently. Like, I can get through this. I can ask for support if I need to, versus if it is an unhealthy relationship and you're constantly hearing, it might be insults, straight insults like you're stupid, you're dumb, you don't know how to do anything. And you're constantly hearing these things and not receiving any type of support from someone that is supposed to love you. Well, eventually what ends up happening is because you keep hearing this repeatedly, you might start to question your own identity, your self-worth. Like, maybe this person is right. Maybe I am worthless. Maybe I'm not worthy of love. I don't have any support aside from this person. So then that is going to affect the way that you see yourself and how you are going to navigate whatever life throws at you. And it's most likely going to be in a very negative way.
Thank you for sharing that, Valentina.
That was really well said. Yeah, I think it's so true. It's really easy to doubt your worth. I think that's the biggest thing, and it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if we're going into this now, but I think there's a lot of things that we can do to build ourselves back up. But Sarah, you let me know when you want us to chat about that. I don't know if Holly wanted to say anything else too.
That's down the line, but we can talk about it
Okay.
whenever.
Okay. I'm curious if Holly had anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree like with everything you said, Valentina, and yeah, just that ability, like we don't trust our own judgment, and that can really make it hard to make decisions, even like want to try new things that would promote our growth because we just don't trust ourselves. We don't think we can do it. Um, and just generally like, yeah, feeling like we're not having worth. Um, the other thing I think with these relationships is we start to feel overly responsible for the other person's well-being and their mental health. So we might put ourselves in situations where we're really not feeling good, and that's going to bring our self-esteem down because we feel like we have to. Or maybe we're not, somebody is like, oh, I'm not going to go off to college because this person is going to stay and do college. So we're really can limit ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, Holly, I wanted to ask a follow-up question of like, do you think a lot of toxic friendships develop a lot of codependency between individuals? Or would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the folks I work with, right, they're empathic. They know when other people are hurting and reminding them that like just because someone doesn't treat us a certain way, like doesn't mean they're a bad person. So it's not about making them bad, but it's about saying like I love myself and want to protect myself. But it can really feel like I have to save them. And that codependent feeling of like if they're not okay, like that's my number one, even though it's hurting me.
Mhm.
Because there's been a bond of I'm responsible for your well-being.
Wow. Yeah, that can definitely be such a heavy load. And especially, yeah, I just resonate with a lot of what you're saying of, yeah, just feeling that weightiness of feeling like you have to care for them. And it seems almost as if they're kind of just living life and you're picking up the pieces behind them, which, or vice versa, even if that is toxic, is that a definition of a toxic friendship for them. But yeah, thank you for sharing some really awesome tidbits of information. But Valentina, I did want to ask you, why do you think a lot of toxic friendships, why do people tolerate such toxic friendships or relationships? And maybe talk about maybe what guilt and loyalty, maybe or fear even can play staying in like a friendship that could be damaging emotionally.
Yeah. So people normally face different barriers when it comes to leaving relationships that are unhealthy. So it's normally not as easy as just telling someone, well, just leave this relationship if it's not good. Stop being friends with this person if they're treating you so poorly, because there normally are reasons why um they're having maybe trouble being stop to, you know, leave that relationship or friendship. So I think from just working at our agency, it can be as simple as this person really loves and cares for this person that they are friends with or that they are in a relationship with, and they simply do not want to leave this person. They do not want to be stop being friends with them because they love them and they don't want to lose that relationship. It can be that simple. But there are also different barriers that people can experience. So one of the things that you mentioned is fear. So fear could be for many different reasons. Maybe they have experienced threats. Oh, if you stop being friends with me, I'm going to go and tell all your secrets. If you leave this relationship, I'm going to harm myself. I'm going to harm you. Maybe they have been harmed in the past and they are afraid of, well, if I leave this relationship, if I leave this friendship, what's going to happen to me? Um, when it comes to I think you mentioned loyalty and things like that. I think those things definitely do come into play when we're talking about a person's character, and that's just who you are. You just are a loyal person to anyone that you know that you consider a friend. Or someone that you're in a relationship with, but it's normally people do face different barriers. Sometimes, when it comes to leaving relationships, sometimes it's feeling that you don't have any support, right? Or if I stop being friends with my best friend, this person who's supposed to be my best friend, I'm not gonna have any other friends. Or if I leave this relationship, well, maybe, you know, I've been made to believe this entire time that I'm not worthy of love, that I'm not going to find another relationship. So normally people do face different barriers. And I would say that when we're discussing these things with teens, they definitely don't experience maybe the same things that an adult would experience, because in adulthood, things do start looking differently, especially with romantic relationships, because people start getting married, they start having kids, they move in together, sharing finances. So some of these behaviors don't look the same. But they still experience the same barriers. For teens, it might be that social pressure, right? If I stop being friends with this person, maybe, you know, I'm not going to have the popularity that I have right now. Or it's afraid of my parents finding out. Because if my parents find out that this person has been bullying me or being mean to me, what do parents normally do, right? You hurt my child. Okay, well, I'm going to make a big deal out of it. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go talk to that, you know, that kid's parents. So normally, just to summarize, people normally face different barriers when it comes to leaving those relationships or friendships, even if they are aware that, yes, this person is very toxic to me. I think with that, there's also when we're talking about romantic relationships specifically, there's the cycle of violence that does a really good job at explaining why sometimes people stay in those relationships. And normally every relationship and every friendship starts off in the honeymoon phase where things are really great. And eventually in the context of these really harmful relationships, they will get into the tension building phase where we start to see all those red flags or warning behaviors happen. And then it moves into the explosion phase where something more drastic happens, and then they stay stuck in that cycle because they go back to the honeymoon phase. Okay, we made up, we're good. But like we discussed, this kind of behavior happens in a pattern. So it is behavior that is going to happen over and over. But people are stuck in this cycle where they hold on to the honeymoon phase, that because my relationship or my friendship is okay sometimes, then that's enough for me to stay because at least we experienced some good moments.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing and just answering that so well. Yeah, does Holly or Andy have anything to add to that, or she say she kind of took it home? That's awesome. Yeah, so I did want to talk about maybe kind of that the trait, it's like a newer term that's kind of being regulated. It's called trauma dumping. Can we just, yeah, anyone can kind of start. Is trauma dumping a toxic trait of a toxic relationship? Is like how does it affect you? Like the other person who's hearing or listening to this, to someone sharing about trauma, like what is too much to share? Yeah, anybody can kind of just dig into what that looks like.
I would say with that, like, it depends. Like, right, it depends on the relationship. Um, it depends on like the capacity that someone might have in that moment. But really when we look at like what the trauma dumping, because people have hard stuff going on and like we should talk about it with our friends and our people. But if it's I'm making you responsible or someone is making you feel responsible for their well-being, um, or that you have to fix it, or they're coming to you like in a helpless state, not in a state of like, hey, can you help me find resources, but in a just like, you have to take care of this for me. I would say that's definitely going into like a more of a toxic pattern, and also the boundaries of being able to ask like, do you have space for this? Or the boundary of being able to say like, hey, I'm really, really stressed out right now. And maybe this is something you could talk about with, your counselor, or you could go to all these different resources. But I think that we throw it around when people share bad stuff or hard stuff of just like, oh, you're trauma dumping on me. And it's like, not everything is sad stuff isn't always toxic.
Yeah, it's really important to like differentiate between the two and kind of where that lies. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Does Valentina or Andy have anything to add before I move on? Um, cool. So yeah, Holly, you did mention boundaries in a relationship. Yeah, and anyone can answer this, but what does boundaries or how can boundaries look in a relationship? Say you recognize, okay, this relationship is a little toxic. How do you go from having like almost no boundaries, let's say, to setting up boundaries afterward, and what can that look like?
So boundaries are extremely important in any relationship, any friendship, and it really can be applied to any relationship, whether it's a friend, romantic, family, coworker, whoever. Boundaries essentially tell us what is and isn't acceptable in our relationships. So we always say like it's always good to, of course, set those boundaries from the beginning, but it doesn't always happen that way, right? You might come to a point where it's like you've been experiencing some type of difficulty with a person, and now you know it. Okay, I probably should have set these boundaries in the beginning. It didn't happen, but I still have the ability to set those boundaries now. So boundaries, there are different types of boundaries that do exist. I'll give you an example of one. I don't like when people raise their voice at me, especially let's say it's a romantic partner, right? So a boundary might sound like if you are having a discussion about something that happened and my partner starts to raise their voice at me, a boundary can sound like if you continue to raise your voice, we're not going to have this conversation, right? And I think with that, sometimes people find themselves in situations where, okay, I'm starting to set these boundaries and the person is still not respecting my boundaries, right? After we've had the conversations, I've done everything that I could, and it's still, my boundaries are not being respected. I think that at that point, it's important to just remember that that's just what happens. Sometimes people just will not respect your boundaries, especially if that is a new introduction to them. So the person that's in that relationship, friendship, knows that relationship best. So only really they will know how to navigate that. If you want to give this person the grace, if you want to give them the forgiveness, that's going to be up to you. But also recognizing that if you've done everything that you could, you have set those boundaries and they are not being respected, you might have to then reconsider and see your situation for what it is and come to that conclusion. Okay, this person is not respecting me. So am I going to have to end this friendship or this relationship?
Love that. Thank you. I'll add that I think with especially people pleasers, as people who are just, naturally wanting to say yes, wanting to always make others happy with and not, respecting themselves almost in that way. I think a big thing is giving yourself permission. So giving yourself permission to one, set a boundary that maybe you hadn't before. And that can be scary. You could be like, well, I used to let her or I used to let them, but it can be scary to walk into, no, I'm no longer accepting this, but it takes time. So also giving yourself permission to not be perfect at it and to be, you don't have to be, okay, go into no boundaries into 100% boundaries. Like it will take baby steps and be kind to yourself, and give yourself permission to keep practicing and advocating for yourself, like literally practice in the mirror, saying no. And, I think even just knowing no is a full sentence, I'm still learning that it takes just a lifelong growth journey. But I think giving yourself permission is like a very important thing to start with and knowing that it takes time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, agree with all of that. And just to add, like, one of the things I remind people is like you find your boundaries by crossing them. So sometimes we don't know they're there, and then we find that limit inside of a relationship. And just like Andy was saying, like the little steps is like one of the things I like to remind folks is like it really has to make sense to you why the boundary's there. Otherwise, we're going to like sabotage it, or someone's going to be able to talk us out of it. And that takes as long as it takes. But yeah, really knowing why we're doing what we're doing, and boundaries are really in service of the relationship. Because if we don't set those boundaries, we're going to get really resentful and we're going to like not like that person. We're going to have so many negative experiences. We're not going to be able to recover. So it's actually the lovingness that makes us want to set the boundary. And another reminder I like to tell people is like love is unconditional, but all relationships have conditions. And so it's not about love at all. Like, and I tell people like, if, when you're done being my client, like, I never stop loving you, but we're not going to talk because our relationship is different. Like there's different boundaries.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really
So good.
impactful. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Another thing I'll add to, and not to be cheesy with the bloom like analogy but having a garden, I think boundaries, you can envision them as fences, and it is what's fences help you keep things out, but they also help keep things in. So like cultivating your garden and knowing that boundaries are there to exist to help cultivate, it's not always just like a bad boundary, if that makes sense. Like there are good boundaries, and reframing that I think can be helpful. So you're not just being like, oh, I'm a bad person for having boundaries, but I'm really protecting myself and protecting my peace. And what does that look like? But yeah.
Yeah, those are all really important points to, definitely figure out as you're navigating what boundaries can look like within a friendship. Yeah, thank you so much for that. But so yeah, we're at this point, like let's say that we know that we're in a toxic friendship and boundaries are not being respected. How what steps, or what would you say to somebody that wants to leave a friendship? Or yeah, what steps can they take to start pulling back, or ending it without maybe starting drama, or yeah, making it like this big explosion? What would you say to somebody?
I think the first thing that I would say is to communication is very important, right? And healthy communication. Like I mentioned earlier, even people that have healthy relationships sometimes have disagreements or arguments. It's just the way of life, right? We have different viewpoints. We're not always going to see situations in the same way. That's when empathy comes in and is very important, because being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes to understand, what they're feeling or what they're going through is so important. I think it's also important to recognize that although if someone wants to leave a friendship or a relationship, that yes, you can go and have this conversation with this person, tell them everything that you have been feeling, taking ownership of your emotions, right? Based on what's happening. But even when you do that and you do it very respectfully, that doesn't mean that it won't create drama. when it comes to romantic relationships, the most dangerous time for a person that is in a harmful relationship is when they are leaving that relationship. So that it's not always guaranteed that we're going to end this friendship or relationship without drama. Because when someone senses, whether it's a friendship relationship, that they are going to lose control that they've been having over this person, that can cause them to go almost like in a spiral. Like, I'm about to lose this person that I've been, manipulating for this entire time. So it doesn't always happen that way, that we're going to be able to leave these situations peacefully. But I think what you can do is that, guarantee, okay, I'm going to take the necessary steps to, leave this in the most respectful, calmest way that I can, but just being mindful that your situation, it might not always look the same, and that it's just not necessarily a guarantee that we can leave this friendship or relationship without drama.
That's really good. I think the only thing I'd add is for like young people and teens, I think we talked about the fears, right? Is the isolation and social circles, breaking up and not having friends. So I would say really investing in different kind of honestly hobbies, like, or finding different circles and groups and supportive people outside of that environment. I think one of my favorite quotes is, if a flower doesn't bloom, like, change the environment, not the flower. And I love just saying that, especially to people who are, yeah, I just love it. It's such a great picture. Like, nothing might be wrong with you, but just change your environment, go find different hobbies that excite you, do what you love. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't mean to simplify. I think Valentina does a great job of sharing, in really dire situations and things like that. But my mindset is more for teens and young women who are like in school. That's really kind of the advice that I would give, and making sure that they're really surrounding themselves with supportive people who can help them, and tell trusted adults, and just really try to build yourself back up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Andy, you mentioned just like, yeah, rebuilding, and you wanted to touch on that, but I'll give you, I think, the opportunity now, like, if you want to share about what rebuilding can look like after the fallout of a friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that look like?
Thank you. Yes. And you mentioned trauma dumping, but I have a term that I really love called post-traumatic growth. And you may or may not be familiar with that, but it's if after a traumatic thing, choosing to grow. And that's kind of where the name Bloom came from. The quote, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we're seeds. So just this idea that even though you've been buried, you could maybe planted to bloom and grow through it. And you can grow through things that are challenging. So we have a How to Bloom journal. It's on our website. I'll drop it in the chat too. But this journal is guided to help you process things like this. The first chapter is called Being Buried, and it has you write down all the things that have been said about you, so you can see it. And it's not just like in your mind on repeat, but it's down on paper, and you can address each one. You can try to think of an empowering truth and move forward. I think it's really easy to get stuck in a spiral, like our panelists have been saying too. It just goes on loop, and then you become an adult and those things are still with you. So you really have to, and therapy is great too to do that, but just getting it down on paper, processing it with someone can really help. The journal also goes through hope and thinking about perspective. Like 7 years ago, what were you doing? 7 years from now, what will you be doing? To give that perspective of, this isn't going to last forever. This toxic relationship that I just had, like, I feel it now. It's very real right now, but 7 years from now, I might be in college. And like, what will that look like? So you can get a better perspective. We also do building up your self-worth. So writing 10 things that you love about yourself. And like we were talking about before, it's so easy to just believe all the negative things, right? But taking time to write those down, also asking people, we ask you to ask like a coach or someone around you, what are 3 positive adjectives about you? So you can really get tangible things like that back in your toolbox, I would say. And then what else is in here? Oh, service. So I'm going to drop an article in the chat as well that is about post-traumatic growth, but service is huge. So thinking about others and how you can start helping someone else, whether that's a quick volunteering on the weekend or processing your story, sharing it with someone who can also benefit from it. Like there's a lot that we can kind of turn our pain into purpose. And that's, I think, a beautiful cycle too of what we've gone through, using what we've gone through to help others. So, oh, wow. Thank you, Madison. You just ordered the journal. That's awesome.
So cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that and like what all the amazing things that Bloom does and yeah, and just the ways that you help with you not just being in it but also afterwards. I think it's really cool just being able to support them in that. But yeah, I do have a question for Holly. What does focusing maybe on self-growth like after the fallout of a friendship, what can self-growth look like in that realm?
I think with that, like I loved what Andy said. Like one of the things I say is like day one always, looks a lot different than day 100. And, we only have to do day one once. But that with like that personal growth, it's getting curious of like what made me available to that. Like Andy was saying, maybe what are some of the beliefs I have about myself that aren't so good that I'm ready to pull that root out and start to look at where that came from. And maybe that's not like that. Usually those messages start as a protective thing. So if I tell myself bad stuff about myself first, like I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. And so really, I think not demonizing any of the things we do, just getting curious of like, oh, that makes sense why, that really appealed to me in that relationship. And here's how I want to notice that and maybe meet that need in a more productive way. Like, how can I actually protect myself by saying no, by, remembering the good things about myself and having people that build me up and thinking of like, when we're rebuilding, I like the analogy, or I'll tell people it's like thinking of like a new tree in a park, and they have those little sticks next to them just to help them get rooted so they don't blow down. But eventually, like we take the sticks away. So we might need like extra support, like we might need therapy, or we might need, more time with friends or more programs for a little bit, but we won't need them forever as our like roots grow. So and trusting like it's always an opportunity to learn more about ourselves. There's layers that we can only learn through relationships. But I think really noticing, because people can stop feeling like they can trust themselves. Like, why did I do that? How did I let that happen? And so rebuilding that trust of knowing like, okay, that makes sense why that happened. And here's how it's different now.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. Yeah, and so you mentioned maybe after fallout you needing therapy. At what point would you say someone may need professional help? What are kind of the signs maybe for another friend to see to maybe say, hey, I think you should go to therapy or to seek help for this. That's more than just, something maybe a little bit more than they can do for themselves.
Yeah, I would say if someone's feeling really hopeless for a good amount of time, like a few weeks, and that's not really moving, um, or they're really feeling like they can't trust anyone, because the therapeutic relationship is so contained, we can get that trusting relationship a lot quicker and have um, some feelings of safety quicker that we might not feel in other relationships because they're not as contained. Or like that looping, if that obsessive thoughts are becoming like they're just not going away. And if your friend is talking about it, they're just talking about the same thing all the time and the process isn't moving, that would be, I think, a good sign to say, it sounds like you need to talk to somebody else. Like, and as a friend, if you're getting annoyed with your friend for talking, like they're not doing anything, that's a good sign to say maybe you should go talk to someone. because we don't want to be annoyed with our friends, and that's a good boundary for us.
So true. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's sometimes it can be hard, especially when you're like so in it, that just being able to see it yourself and to recognize um that, and even having like you're a good friend to have even the ability to speak into that, and which can be feel like you can feel very vulnerable when if someone were to say that, it can seem really scary. Yeah, so there's I just want to like kind of to flip the roles a little bit, but how can somebody like after a fallout, how can somebody recognize their unhealthy role in the relationship if there is? Yeah.
I would say like noticing maybe that like how you made excuses or were willing to like put your feelings aside. And notice too, like with that resentment, if you're giving more than you want to give in kind of hopes that someone will do the same thing, and you keep doing that, that's really like a way that we're feeding into that toxicity, and getting caught in it, and just noticing like what made me available. And oftentimes it's not like you did something, but it's like, oh, you don't value yourself. And if we don't value ourselves, like other people we're more susceptible and vulnerable to other people treating us as if we're not valuable. And so, and again, like it makes sense. We all make sense. For if I'm not valuing myself, that's happening because of a good reason in my life and my history. And I want to learn how to rebuild that relationship with myself and really feel like I am a valuable person. I'm worth being treated well.
Yeah, so good. I'll just add on that a great way too is journaling about this. And I'm happy to share journal prompts specifically around this topic. If you want to send me an email, I'll drop my email. But yeah, just asking those questions and sitting with yourself and really wondering, I have a few questions here. Did I allow boundaries to be crossed repeatedly? Did I engage in any unhealthy behaviors myself? And was I afraid of confrontation? So just like, those are hard questions to ask, but just really reflecting on kind of what you, yeah, just I think reflecting. And I'm an advocate of journaling, so I would say to journal.
I think I just wanted to add one last thing in regards to that. As at our agency, or I think just in this field that we are in therapy, you do see that accountability happening, right? Like, why did I allow boundaries to be crossed and things like that? I think when we're working with clients, sometimes what we do, especially at our agency, we don't make, or I think for a lot of you don't make decisions for your clients, right? We cannot make decisions for other people. What we can do, it often starts with education. Okay, understanding the things that I went through, putting a name to that behavior can be incredibly healing, or the start to that healing journey, just being able to understand what was going on. And just doing that and just remembering that if you're ever in a position where you might have to help a friend or that is experiencing something like this, just remembering that we cannot make decisions for people, but what we want to do is empower them to make informed decisions about their own lives. And so when we start getting into, those talks about accountability, okay, is it, why did I remain in this relationship for so long? Why did I stay friends with this person for so long? It's trying to help them get to that point where they are able to understand it for themselves. And I think that can create a lot of, oftentimes, a lot of shame, or a lot of guilt, or like, why did I put up with this? But just having that reminder that we cannot change people, we cannot make decisions for them, but we can definitely offer our support in any way that we can, so that they are able to just grow from that situation that they went through.
Yeah, that's all some really good, advice. It's always good to self-reflect, especially after the fallout of like a tough relationship or friendship. And so yeah, what if this can be for anybody, but what role does kind of seeking support from like family or friends come to play in like either the fallout or during a toxic friendship? What can you do as a friend or family member? Um, yeah, I'll open up the floor.
Something that comes to mind is validation. I think other people can really help you make sense of your reality if you can share and they can validate and sit with you in it. And yeah, I think just to have someone to listen to is huge. Someone to share with in a environment that's safe, supportive. Um, but yeah, I think validating is big, perspective too. So we kind of talked about that here and there, but just to get a better perspective. I think when you're in it, you're just so focused, you only have kind of one view of it, but getting that outside perspective is huge. And then yeah, I think advice, mentors too, seeking out mentors who are like a little ahead of you in their healing journey or something like that too, hearing stories, knowing that you're not alone. Some like forums can be really helpful, I think, and just knowing that like, yeah, you're not alone, that you can get through it. Like you said, Sarah, like hearing that was very comforting, right? Like to know that you're not the only one. Yeah.
I think just going off of that, just something that really anyone can practice is just listening without judgment, especially when it comes to relationships, because relationships can have extremely difficult dynamics, right? So just listening without judgment, because sometimes impact and intent and impact don't always come off the same way, right? So our intent might be to empower a friend, right? Telling them like you didn't deserve that. You didn't have to go through that. I would have left that relationship. I would have left this person behind. I would have, left this friendship a long time ago. And I know sometimes we have really good intentions, right? We want to empower that person, but they might not take it that way in that moment. Instead, what they might be hearing is, oh, you think this wouldn't happen to you. Like you think I'm weak because I stayed friends with this person for so long. So listening without judgment and also recognizing, earlier I brought up that cycle that people sometimes get stuck in, and sometimes they're not aware that they got stuck in that cycle, right? So they have really good moments with this person, but they also have really bad ones, and they hold on to the hope that, okay, maybe my friendship or my relationship can get better. So sometimes when you are a person that someone else is confining in and they're telling you that maybe, this friend is really awful to me and all these things, it's important to recognize, again, these relationship dynamics can be very complex. And sometimes, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, they might go back to being friends with that person, or they might go back to being in that relationship with that person. So it's important to just give them that support, even if they go back to being friends with that person, or even if they go back into that relationship. Education again can be very powerful, so you can start doing that with them, for them, as a way to support them. So eventually they can recognize it for themselves that this relationship and friendship is not healthy and I need to step away from this person.
I think those are things I wrote down as well, but one other thing that I think that would be helpful that we can do as support people is like, I remind especially teenagers and kids, like we really need to, like, this is true for adults, like microdose on our feelings. Like we kind of like touch in and we touch out, and we touch in and we touch out. So we might have this feeling of like we have to talk it out until we get to a resolution, and we really, like, you need to feel better because as your friend, it makes me really uncomfortable to watch you be in pain. So knowing like it's okay, they can handle it, but also like do fun stuff, invite them to go, to the beach or play sports, so that, and then if they, and while we're hanging out and they say something, we give that compassion and that reality testing of like, oh, that doesn't seem to match up, or maybe how would you feel if someone said that to me? Like, and that can just, it's not to like, knowing that, like, I like to remind people, like, I don't know, like, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how you got there. Like, it's not mine to judge. And like, I don't know what the right answer is. And I always tell people, if there was a clear right answer, you would have just done that. So we can assume that there wasn't.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And yeah, like Joy Joy kind of put it in the chat a little, like letting others, not controlling the situation, but like letting, like exploring what that looks like, of just going through that whole process. Yeah, so just one last little question. This can be for anyone, but are there any like community resources, or just resources in general that individuals can seek, either in toxic relationships, friendships, or even after? Are there any like specific community resources that come to mind, or resources in general?
So, of course, our agency, Laura's House, our services are available to teens. People also, so I mentioned we do offer therapy to adults and children. So the start of therapy is our PEP program, which is our personal empowerment program. It is a 10-week program where people are learning about the dynamics of domestic violence or really harmful relationships, the impacts, the short-term, long-term impacts, all of those things. And then they are able to access therapy services because they need a good foundation to understand what it is that they have been going through. We also, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the work that we do here in our education department is going into schools to present on teen dating violence, but we do have different presentations. So our teen dating violence goes over those red flags, the really unhealthy behaviors, difference between unhealthy versus harmful relationships, the different types of harm. And then we have a completely separate presentation that just goes into healthy relationships. What does trust, respect, safety mean to you, and what are boundaries? And we just focus on that. So that is, I think, a great resource. So if anyone is interested in, and we don't only do it at schools, we do it at community agencies. So if that's something that someone would be interested in, we go all over Orange County. We're super flexible. So that is always an option. And then, of course, the services at our agency as well.
And I'll just plug the Noble Bath Foundation. If you're in South County, we're in San Clemente, and I have seen so many young people that really like either had a bad experience with bullying, or they just have a hard time making friends in general, and just kind of aren't sure kind of who to trust. Like, it's such a beautiful place to meet people that you wouldn't have another opportunity to meet. And there's a lot of mentorship on like kind of how, from like older teens, especially to our younger teens, of like how to, what does good friendship look like, and what does it mean to be kind and loving and respectful. And so that's a beautiful place. And then I always recommend the Warm Line that NAMI has in Orange County. Because again, like sometimes it's hard to know who to talk to, or people feel like, oh, I don't want to be a burden, or I don't want to bother them. So the Warm Line is just like a professional kind of friend you can text and just say, I'm having a hard time. And that's always like a really beautiful resource to know, like there is someone I can talk to.
So good. These are great resources. I also had NAMI written down, and podcasts. I think we have a podcast, Bloom does, and I think it can help just to listen to other people having conversation about their experiences. And then we also have an upcoming workshop on May 3rd that we're excited about, and it's for high school juniors and seniors. But yeah, I honestly, want to know more community resources too. I know there's some books too. There's one called Attached, and it's kind of understanding attachment styles, because as we're talking to, or as I was preparing for this, I realized that attachment styles can really play a part into these kinds of relationships.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's a whole nother coalition meeting to go through. It's like that's a whole nother can of worms we'd have to open. But yeah, thank you ladies for being willing to kind of speak into this topic, and just give your expertise and your insight and wisdom into what this kind of messy topic looks like, and understanding it better and being able to have access to help when needed. It's so appreciated. But yeah, we're gonna go quickly into just some different partner updates. As far as Connect OC goes, Yeah, just wanted to thank those who attended the UCI fair. That was so awesome. We had over 300 people or 300 students. I think we had 325 total. Just join us with over 40 vendors. It was so cool to see. So we really thank all of those who came and attended. We also have a resource fair coming up at Cal State Fullerton in April, which we're really excited about. And then we have one at OC School of Arts in May as well. So yeah, just that's what's kind of going on over here. Yeah, and then we'll do partner updates now, but I will pass it to Andy just to kick us off for partner updates. So go ahead, Andy.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for this panel. I really enjoyed it. So we do have our upcoming How to Bloom workshop. So it's for high school juniors and seniors. It's going to be at Embark Behavioral Health in Newport Beach, and from like 9:30 to 4. So just a one-day workshop going through the journal together, and doing different activities. So I'll drop a link in the chat if you're interested in learning more. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. Anybody else have any updates? Oh, Michelle.
Oh, hi. Tonight we're at Concordia University. They're having a HOPE event to provide resources to college students in the realm of wellness. So we're going to have a table there. We're doing I Am Hearts, and we welcome everyone. I'm going to see if I can shoot a flyer over if you want to share it. They didn't really give me a flyer. It's on their website, but happy to share that. And then I invited everyone, if anyone's interested, we're doing a big event on 5/9/25 where we're celebrating all generations of social impact. We're going to mix like different leaders on stage. So we'll be having Gen Z there as well, sharing their social impact, talking to philanthropists and social leaders of all ages. So I put that in the flyer too, in the chat.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for this incredible conversation. I actually had a workplace bullying incident that led me to be a gratitude teacher. And so and a neuroscience coach. So I really appreciate this conversation. And I've had to set some healthy boundaries with a lot of people the past few years. I'm sure we all have. And it's not always easy. And I really related to the trauma bombing comment because I'm empathic and I felt like I had to take responsibility for helping everyone because we're in this sector. And you get to a point where you're like, whoa, what's going on here? So thank you so much for this beautiful conversation to all of our leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Really quick before we have anybody else say any updates, if you have a second, please take our survey in the chat. Crystal posted it. It just takes a couple minutes and it helps us just to see what we can do better for future times, for future meetings, and things you liked so that we can keep doing them. Yeah, that'd be really appreciated. But yeah, anybody else have any updates?
I have just one more to add with the Noble Path does their Aim High program, which is a 7-week leadership program. And we are starting our first Aim High Plus, which is for 18 to 24-year-olds that are maybe having like that kind of failure to launch or having like a hard time knowing their place in the world, to get them some skills and get them connected. So we're really excited about that. Then that starts June 2nd. So people can register now if they want to go on the Noble Path website or social media. There's lots of ways to find us.
Thanks, Holly. Anyone else? Awesome. Yeah, well, again, thank you to our panel for just your expertise and your wisdom. It was so impactful. And yeah, definitely I was taking little tidbits of it with me just to apply to my own life as well, which is awesome. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you all coming and just listening and learning with us. Our next meeting is April 11th at 10 a.m. on Zoom. So if you'd love to, we'd love to have you again next month. But yeah, with that, have a great weekend. Stay warm, stay dry, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. See you, Sarah.